Just a few minutes ago, I had a message on my YouTube channel from Robert. You might have seen it, hopefully you have. He's asking, is it possible to use large-scale maps for navigating around the hills? Okay, I wasn't expecting to make a video today, but I had the camera in the car, so I'll give it a try. And yes, I've seen all the people advising you how to make YouTube videos. You know, you must have a script, you must plan everything. I'm up here in the hills and only got this question a few minutes ago, so I'll just make it up as we go along. I'll give it a try and see what happens. Luckily, I can't possibly get lost today, as I've got 3 different maps, of this area. So what can go wrong? Maybe I can get lost 3 times quicker than normal, who knows? At the moment, I'm here on this map. On this map, I'm here, and on this map, I'm here. So these maps are all different map scales, and if you know what a map scale is, you'll fully understand what I mean when I say that. This is a 1 to 40,000 map, this is a 1 to 50,000, and this is a 1 to 25,000. But if you don't understand what a map scale is, me just saying 1, then a massive number, it won't mean anything. So let's get this out of the way to start with. What is a map scale? And I know there are entire websites devoted to answering this question, but as always, let's try and keep things really simply. And so I'll try and cut it down to, let's have a think, 20 words. Yeah, 20 words. Also, don't forget, as this is just my opinion, it may be wrong, but I would say that map scales are just the size of something shown on a map compared with how big they are in reality. 20 words. I'll say it again. Map scales are just the size of something shown on a map compared with how big they are in reality. Now, as maps are always smaller than the real world, the map scale tells you how much smaller something is, like a mountain or a building, compared with what you can see printed on the map. So if you have a 1 to 50,000 map, like this one, the mountain will be shown on the map 50,000 times smaller than it is in real life. You can also go in the opposite direction. So if you measure the distance between 2 points on a map, say on a 1 to 40,000 map, the actual different distance on the ground will be 40,000 times longer. Okay, now knowing what a map scale is can help you navigate. You can work out distances, tell how long it's going to take you to walk somewhere, etc., etc. So let's assume that you measure the distance between 2 points on your map and you see that they're 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter apart. If you have a 1 to 25,000 map, then you know that on the ground those 2 points will actually be 25,000 times further apart than they're shown on your map. And 25,000 times 1 centimeter is 250 meters. Now, this may sound a little complicated, but there's a really easy way of remembering this. And that is, if you think of 1 millimeter is always the same as the map scale. So on a 1 to 40,000 map, 1 millimeter is 40 meters. On a 1 to 50,000 map, 1 millimeter is 50 meters. A 1 to 25,000 map, 1 millimeter is 25 meters. And this simple method works for any metric map scale. So if you just remember that 1 millimeter is always the same as a map scale, it'll make things much simpler. So anyway, that's a brief introduction to map scales, but Robert's question was whether he could use a 1 to 50,000 map, for navigating around the hills. Okay, let's give it a try. I'm actually up here as I'm doing a recce for, to have a look along the track, from here at Malham Tarn, that's behind me, I'm going to go up to Fountains Fell Tarn. I've got a group navigation course in a few weeks' time, and some of the people in the group they have certain physical conditions, which means that they can only walk over certain types of terrain. So I just want to make sure that the entire route from here up to Fountains Fell is usable for the whole group. If it isn't, I'll just find another location. Now, it doesn't matter what type of map you have, when you're working out the different distances. I'm getting tongue-tied. you know, just look at the map index and it will always show you how to work this out. I'll drop this onto your screen while I'm just going to work this out. I've got my compass on my ruler. I'll just work it out. All three maps tell me today is just over 16.4 kilometers. So, you know, so that's a little more than 10 miles. So today, let's use these three maps to get from here to Fountains Fell Tarn, and let's have a look at what the differences are and try and answer Robert's question about using different map scales to navigate. The visibility at the moment is about 30 meters. So it may get thicker, it may thin out, who knows, but I need to go in that direction. It's very cold today. But to quote from Alfred Wainwright, there's no such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing. And hopefully my clothing today is appropriate for these conditions. We'll have another chat further up the track. So I've just come round the north of Malham Tarn and I'm heading in that direction. The most obvious difference between different scale maps is that the bigger the scale, the more ground is shown, you know, in the same area on the map. I'll put this onto your screen. You can see there are lines going up and across the map. These lines form squares of 1 kilometre on each side. The 1 to 50,000 K map has lines that are 2 centimetres apart. The 1 to 40K map, the lines are 2.5 centimetres apart. And on the 1 to 25 map, they form a 4 centimetre square. This means that even though the same ground features exist, like streams and walls and different vegetation and rock outcrops, and in this area, shake holes, you know, on larger scale maps, there just isn't enough room to print that much information. And the result of this is that larger scale maps show much less detail. As an example, at the moment I'm here at the junction of the track and the lane, and on the 50,000 map it shows the track going over the lane, and then in about 350 meters I'm going to go past a building, and after this the track will bear northwest up a slope, and then it will turn right before it goes over a stream. Now, for most people, that is all you need. You know, when you're going out for a walk, that's enough information. The 1 to 25K map gives much more information. You know, I can use this extra information as collecting features. The buildings shown on the 1 to 50 map, actually on the 1 to 25 map, you can see it's actually a collection of buildings. And I'll go past this on the west-hand side, so they'll be on my right. And this map shows me an acorn symbol next to the track. This means that it's a national trail. And so as the government puts some money towards its upkeep, it should be reasonable quality all the way. Now, it also shows me where the track goes through different walls, you know, etc., etc. So in reduced visibility, this would be really, really useful, as I would be expecting these features. And as I went past each one, you know, this would give me a fix on the map of my exact location. Don't forget, you always need to know where you are. So very detailed maps can be sometimes useful. But on the flip side, you know, it's easier to visualize the shape of the terrain on larger scale maps, you know, as they're not as cluttered. As an example, if we look on this 1 to 50,000 map here, the section of the walk that comes, you know, it comes down from Fountains Fell towards the trig point on the top of No Fell. And on the 1 to 50,000 map, it's very, very easy to see the wide open ridge going south. You can see that as you're walking down, it will be steeper on your left, and the ground will slope away gently to your right as you're walking down towards a trig point. And just before you arrive at the trig point, there'll be a slight rise for the last section. But on the 1 to 25 map, the route has a lot more detail, you know, and the ridge just isn't as clear. Obviously it is there, you know, but it's much less obvious. And this is why some people prefer a mixture, and they use a 1 to 40,000 map. You know, with these 1 to 40,000 maps like this, you get much more detail, you know, then you can actually fit on a 1 to 50,000 map, but they're not as cluttered as a 1 to 25. These Harvey 1 to 40,000 maps are really good for longer walking routes. You still get the detail that you need without the map being too cluttered. As an example, I'll give you an example. This track that I'm on at the moment on the Harvey map, there's a line of red dots with some black dashes, which means that the track exists along that route. You know, it doesn't give you anything like the information that you would get on a 1 to 25,000 map, but it does still give you a lot more information than you get on a 1 to 50,000. As an example, Ordnance Survey maps, they just show you that green dots or green dashes for a bridleway, it shows you that the public right-of-way exists. The Harvey maps, they give you the red dots, which shows you it exists, but they also give you the black dashes to show you that there physically is a track, you know, along that public right-of-way. Just a quick point on mapping. When people imagine Great Britain and the maps, they tend to imagine, you know, not these ones, it's these ones that they imagine, the 1 to 25,000. This is what the Ordnance Survey is famous around the world for. These 1 to 24k maps, they are, how would I describe them? They are artwork. You know, no other country in the world that I know of has maps of this quality. You know, don't misunderstand that. You know, there are a lot of countries with good maps. Switzerland has some excellent maps. Some parts of Norway, even, you know, little bits of America or Canada. You know, lots of countries have little sections of good maps, but only Great Britain has every single inch covered to this level of quality. You know, there are more accurate maps. Orienteering clubs will, if they own a field or they do their races in a forest, they will map that down to the inch. They will know where every rock and divot and everything is. But no other country that I know of has maps of this quality that covers the entire. I'll give you an example. Let's take this rucksack off. I'll just use the 1 to 25k. Can you see this thing behind me? This feature here. I'll walk. It's here. So it's this shape in the ground, and it's a rectangle against there. That's obviously a disused sheepfold. You know, where they used to shear the sheep or do something with sheep. That is actually on the map. You know, I'll put this on a split screen so you can see it. As far as I know, no other country would bother putting that on the map. But the Ordnance Survey have had hundreds of years to, you know, map the entire country. And for most of that time, it was funded by the military. And we all know, you know, however much they complain, militaries aren't bothered about the cost of things. Anyway, I thought I'd stop and have a chat. Or was it just a pathetic attempt to have a rest? Because I'm just walking uphill. Anyway, let's cut the waffle out. Let's carry on uphill. The first half of this, everything is uphill. Let's carry on. So I've been walking uphill for quite a while, and I'm looking for Fountains Fell Tarn. Now, I'll drop this onto your screen. As you can see, Fountains Fell Tarn isn't actually on the track. It's actually to the left of the track. So what I need to do is I need to cut across land somewhere in that direction from here on the track to Fountains Fell, but I need to know where I am. You know, if I take a guess, then I could actually head out on a bearing and just end up in the middle of nowhere, which is not good. So what I need to do is I need to find out exactly where I am. But if you look behind me, you can't do a resection on a day like this. You know, there's no features that you can, you just can't. So what we've got is, the one thing all maps have is contour lines, and we can use those to find out where we are. I'm not sure if you can see it in this fog. The fog did actually start to lift, but it's coming down again. It's getting thicker. But I'm walking uphill, and in that direction, the track goes off slightly left. So I can look on my map. Once again, I'll drop this onto your screen. And on all three maps, different scales, you can see where the path turns round to the left. what I can just make out in the fog is I've got a feature. I'll turn the camera around, give me 30 seconds, hopefully you can see it. Let's have a look, let's turn this camera around. There we go. So if you look about 50 meters from the footpath there's a feature that comes in. There's a definite feature that points in towards the contour line, and I can actually see that on the map, and it's just in the right place. So that feature is pointing at me. The footpath has been coming uphill. It's going to turn slightly left. So now I know exactly where I am on my map. Now, this thing about contour lines, on the 1 to 25,000 maps, contour lines tend to be in 5 meter increments. But in this one, they're in 10. I actually don't know when they change from 5 to 10. You know, the Ordnance Survey just won't tell anybody anything like that. On these Harvey maps, these 1 to 40,000, the contour lines are in 15 meter increments. And on the 1 to 50,000 map, they're in 10 meter increments. So in this case, when you're looking for very small features and slight changes in the path and the ascent and descent of the path, I would suggest that in this case, micro navigation in the fog, the more detail you've got on your map, the better it is. So 1 to 25 in this case will be better. So I need to head from here now. Let's have a look. I'm going to head straight down across country to the Tarn. So I need to head on a bearing of 254. There's no declination, you know, to worry about in this area at the moment. There will be in a few years, but at the moment we're on the agonic line, near enough. So I need to go, let's have a look, in that direction. And I need to walk from here, it's approximately 400 meters to the Tarn. Oh, Tarn, by the way, if English isn't your first language, Tarn is, it's mainly used in all northern England, and it describes a mountain lake or a mountain pool. So 400 meters in that direction, and hopefully we'll arrive at the Tarn. But it's this thing about different map scales, they are for different uses, and for micro navigation in poor visibility like this, where, you know, if you head off in the wrong direction, it can be quite serious in some cases, and you do need to know where you are. It's not the map that really affects, you know, your micro navigation. It's how well you can personally navigate. So just to get that out there, you know, it doesn't really matter which map you've got. If you can't use it very well, then it may not be an idea to come walking out and head across country on days like this. But we'll try it, we'll give it a go. 254, 400 meters. Let's see what happens. Welcome to Fountains Fell Tarn. On the way up here, what I made a point of doing was not doing any fancy navigation, because in these conditions, it's stick to the basics and it'll see you right. All I did is I aimed for the Tarn, and then when I got to the Tarn, I turned left. And that brought me to this area here, which is the far easterly point of the Tarn, which is here. It's where the stream flows in. So basically I aimed off. I've done a video on aiming off. It's a very safe method, especially in conditions like this, to get to an exact spot. I'll put the link in the description box. So there you go, Fountains Fell Tarn. It's named after Fountains Abbey, which in the medieval period, they owned all this land. Fountains Abbey is actually in 40 miles in that direction. Yeah, over there. But it was dissolved by Henry VIII, I think in, 1539? Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. But so this is it. Fountains Fell Tarn is actually, it's quite unusual. I told you, there's always something interesting, by the way, everywhere you go. You can see, I'll drop the map briefly onto your screen. What do you notice about this tarn that's unusual? There's a stream coming in, but there's no streams going out. This is one of the few lakes in England where the amount of water that actually goes into it is almost exactly equal to the amount of evaporation. So there's no lake, or there's no stream going off it. Sorry for the waffle. This area is limestone, so there really shouldn't be a lake here. You know, should there? You know, all the water should just seep into the ground and disappear miles down underneath the ground. But there's obviously a lake, and there's Malham Tarn as well, the large one that I started off from ages ago. What happened was, in some areas, just a few areas, this area between about 100,000 years ago and maybe 11 or 12,000 years ago, for that long period it was under the ice, it was under the glaciers. And the glaciers, when you see them on the TV, they, you know, on a cartoon, they seem to flow in that direction. But they don't. That's not how glaciers work. Glaciers, the top of them may look flat, you know, because it gets eroded by wind and rain and what have you. But underneath on the ground, it's what's the word? It undulates. And every now and again, when it goes over a hill, it'll drop down the other side. And as it does, it applies more pressure to that point in the ground. And what's happened here is the glacier has actually completely scraped away the limestone. And so you're just left with the bedrock, which is impervious. So that's why you have a lake here on the top of a mountain. I almost started to waffle then. Let's cut that out and let's stay focused. So what would be the best map scale to actually use? Let's get back to the question. Well, it really depends on what you're intending to do. You know, if you're walking across the top of the Cairngorm Plateau, where there simply aren't that many features, you know, there's not many walls or fences or whatever, all you need to be able to really do is to navigate safely in wide open terrain. Then a 1 to 50,000 map would be ideal, especially in the snow, you know, when it's all covered up. But if you're in the Lake District, where most people just follow major paths and tracks and head for a certain summit or, you know, a certain climbing area, then a bit more detail may be needed, you know, so a Harvey 1 to 40,000 map would be ideal. In this area, you really do need a 1 to 25 map, you know, as it will show you field boundaries. And in this area, that means dry stone walls. You need to know how to get around. If you want to zoom in further and talk about a specific route, you know, like the one that I'm doing today, you can only really do this with a 1 to 25 map, you know, as it will show you where the potholes are. And in this area, there are lots of shake holes. You really, really do need to know where these are, you know. So hopefully, to answer the question, can you use a 1 to 50,000 scale map for navigating around the hills? The answer is, it's a definite yes. But in some areas, you may want, more details about your route. So a 1 to 40 or a 1 to 25 would be, you know, in that case, they'd be needed. Obviously, there are lots and lots of different map scales that you can buy, you know, but today I've just used the three they're the most common in the UK. The Ordnance Survey 1 to 50,000 and 1 to 25,000, and the Harvey maps 1 to 40,000. I'll leave you with 3 quick points if I can think of them. Here we go. The 1 to 50,000 shows the general layout of the terrain in a much simpler and easier to visualize manner. You know, and that's really useful. They cover a much larger area. So for long distance walks, cycling, horse riding, etc., you know, this scale would be a good idea. On the 1 to 50k, major tracks and paths are shown, but not the smaller ones. 1 to 25k has access land in tinted shade, and virtually everything that you can see on the ground is shown on the map. You know, as an example, it has field boundaries, which in this area is really, really useful. This scale, 1 to 25k, is ideal for complex navigation around smaller or more dangerous features. 1 to 40k is probably the magic scale. It's got a larger area than the 1 to 25, but it shows more details than the 1 to 50. Harvey maps have bands of relative altitude in colour, you know, that's really good when you're contouring. Harvey maps are also biased towards hill walkers and climbers. So there's more trekking and crag features shown on their maps. Just before I go, I'm going to drop some photographs onto the screen. as I was walking over in the fog, I've seen lots and lots of elongated brown rope coils. That's the only way to describe them. I'll put the pictures on the screen. Does anybody know what these are? Because I have honestly never seen them, ever. And I've been walking in the hills in England for quite a while. Somebody has taken a lot of effort to put those up here. And I actually don't know. So if you know what they are, could you let me know in the comments box? Anyway, thanks for watching.